بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ثم أما بعد. Inshallah, today we'll go over engagement and contract. So this will be sort of more interesting for people. Because one of the days that the chapters are particularly interesting. There will be some chapters that are less interesting, such as Raja'ah, restoration of marriage, the different waiting periods for different women. But this one chapter is interesting for a lot of people. Engagement. Inshallah, I'll try to also include the matn. I will try to basically read the matn here verbatim for those of you who would be interested. So Ibn Qudamah rahimahullah, and I'm not doing any introduction because we did the introduction last time, so we will not, maybe once in a while we will repeat the introduction, but we are studying an abridged book, a manual of Hanbali Fiqh with a comparative elaboration, including the positions from the four madhahib. And I did say that the mashayikh in the past used to basically have a manual in every type of knowledge, and then they would expand from there. They'll start with the manual, which is the core. It's a very abridged, concise code where they summarize the subject. And then they go from there. So the manual is the nucleus, and then they elaborate on it. They add the so-called shuruh, explanations, commentaries, and then in addition to this, they elaborate on the elaboration by the so-called hawashi, which are side and footnotes. Notes. They usually wrote them on the sides, and they could also write them on the bottom, but mainly on the sides. So hawashi would be side and footnotes. So we have three different types of books. In fact, we have four, because there are some books that are like al-Muqna, for instance. Remember when we discussed last time the different books on fiqh that Ibn Qudamah wrote, and we said that the smallest would be al-Umdat that we are explaining, and the largest would be al-Mughni, which is a compendium of comparative fiqh, and we said number 2 is al-Muqna, and number 3 is al-Kafi. Number 2 from the bottom, the second smallest, would be al-Muqna, and number 3 would be al-Kafi. Al-Muqna would not qualify like a matn necessarily, maybe, or let's say a book like al-Kafi, for instance, would not qualify, because al-Muqna is somewhere between a matn and a book. But al-Kafi would not qualify as a matn, it is a book. So when the book is larger than a matn, but it is not an explanation of a matn, it's called kitab. So you have the matn, you have the kitab, you have the sharh, you have the hawashi. The matn is the manual, the code. The sharh is the explanation of that manual or code. The hawashi are the additional side and footnotes added by scholars of latter generations to that sharh, which is on the matn. The book is just by itself. It's larger than the matn, but it is not an explanation of another matn. So it's a larger book. That's not an explanation of a matn. This would be called a kitab. Matn, sharh, hawashi, kitab. Al-Umda is a matn, is a manual. And we were doing a comparative explanation, and we did say why we were doing a comparative explanation, because it would be important, particularly for people who live in the West, to have a comparative, have a comparative approach to fiqh, even if you go by one madhab, or if you name one madhab your foundation, but to have some comparative understanding is important for sort of promoting tolerance. And it is also important, particularly important in our times, because of our need to understand the wisdom of the divine, not within the confines of one single imam or madhab, which could harm our faith sometimes, or some people's faith, particularly skeptics, or particularly people that do not understand the difference between the divine and the human. So Imam Ibn Qudamah started here by saying engagement. Actually, engagement is between brackets, corner of the brackets, so this is an addition from me. Anything above the footnotes that is not from Ibn Qudamah is between, I put it between corner of the brackets. So I added this title just for clarification. But he's, rahimahullah, said, وَمَنْ أَرَادَ خِطْبَةَ امْرَأَةٍ فَلَهُ النَّظَرُ مِنْهَا إِلَى مَا يَظْهَرُ عَادَةً كَوَجْهِهَا وكفيها وقدمها. من أراد خطبة امرأة فله النظر إلى ما يظهر عادة كوجهها وكفيها وقدمها. So this means ومن, whoever whoever أراد, wanted, خطبة, engagement, so to propose, خطبة امرأة, to propose to a woman, فله النظر, له, to him, another, looking, so he's entitled to looking. Another is looking, lahu, he's entitled to, ila, looking at, ma, that which, yazhar, appears, adatan, ada is what? Customarily. And if the translation is different from my translation here in the notes, that's fine too. Because the translation does not have to be exact. Kawajhiha, like her face. Ka is like. Wajhiha, her face. Wakaffayha, hands, and hands. Waqadamayha, and feet. Okay. So whoever wants to propose to a woman, he is entitled to looking at that which usually appears or customarily appears. Customarily appears where?
Place?
The
place where you are?
In public?
At home. No, not in public. For certain, he's not talking about public. because in public, قدميها would only be okay to appear according to the Hanafi madhab, not the Malikis, not the Shafi'is, not the Hanbalis. So for certain, he's talking about what customarily appears at home. Otherwise, what's the distinction between the Khatib and anyone else if these are things that would appear in public? What is his entitlement? Okay, so first of all, looking is important. Looking is important. And it has been reported by Imam Muslim, rahimahullah, from Abu Hurairah, that the man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he told him that I had proposed to a woman. The Prophet said to him, أَنَظَرْتَ إِلَيْهَا قال لا قال انظر إليها فإن في أعين الأنصار شيئا. So the Prophet said to him, had you looked at her? He said no. And then the Prophet ﷺ said to him, look at her because there is something in the eyes of al-Ansar, which means something undesirable by the Muhajirin, something undesirable by the Meccans. Maybe the eyes of the Ansar were a little bit narrower than what the Meccans usually desired. So the Prophet ﷺ is basically alerting him that, you guys desire a certain appearance and you do want to look at her to make sure that you're comfortable with how she appears before you marry her. And this is extremely important. Imam Ahmad, in fact, said that you should not ask first about her deen. This was Mardawi reported this in Al-Insaf from Imam Ahmad. He said that the first thing you should ask about is not her deen. You should ask about her beauty first. So then if you know that she's beautiful, you ask about her deen. And if she is religious, then you proceed. And if she is not religious, then you refrain. Then you would have refrained for the lack of religiosity, not the lack of beauty. Because if you ask about her deen, and then you know that she is religious, and then you proceed and then you look at her and she's not beautiful, or, beautiful is relative, right? Beauty is relative. She's not beautiful in your eyes. So if you ask about her religiosity and then you're told that she is religious, and then you proceed, and then you discover that she's not beautiful, and you refrain, then you would have rejected a religious woman for the lack of beauty. That is unbefitting. That is hurtful. So first ask about her beauty, or try to figure out if you are content with her appearance. And then you ask about her religiosity, so that when you make your final decision, you're proceeding or refraining on the basis of her religiosity. So there are many ahadith to this effect, which is that you do need to be comfortable with how your spouse looks. Now, can we say the same applies to the sisters? Yes, absolutely. They are entitled to be accepting or rejecting. However, they are not the ones that are seeking out, so the Prophet ﷺ did not say, go look for like a handsome man, but when someone, like a man, proposes to her and she does not feel that she is comfortable with his looks, she has the right to say no. She needs to be content with his appearance as well. Now the extent of looking, or the extent of that which you could look at or could be shown to the khatib, what is the extent? How much of the body could be shown? So now he said, كوجهها وكفيها وقدميها, like her face, her hands, and her feet. Basically, he said, إِلَى مَا يَظْهَرَ عَادَةً, that which customarily appears. But if we go to other places within the madhab, we will find that there is a little bit of disagreement within the madhab. But within the Hanbali madhab, whatever appears customarily is not just that. You add to it the head, neck. You could even add parts of the legs, but we'll just leave it at this for now. The majority, which is the three madhahib, capital H means what? Guys, you should be studying this stuff. And I gave you it has the abbreviations. Capital H does not only mean Hanafi. It means the strong position within the Hanafi madhab. Capital M, strong position within the Maliki. Capital S, strong position within the Shafi'i. And then a small a is the weaker position within the Hanbali madhab. All of those said what? Face and hands. And you would expect the Hanafis also to add feet, right? Because to them, feet are okay to show, period. This is their default. This is not just for the khatib. So all of them said face and hands, the Hanafis would add feet. The Hanbalis in the stronger report said face, hands, feet, head, neck. I will just leave it at this because some of them also said the parts of the legs. And then we have a third position that is a weaker position that left it up to the khatib and the makhtuba, the woman proposed to and the one proposing. So left it. They said that she could show whatever she wants. But that's a weaker position. But these are the two orthodox positions. So if some people wanted to take this, that's fine. Take this, that is fine. Some people sometimes have excessive wara, excessive cautious piety, and some of the sisters, some of the Niqabi sisters sometimes, or at least I heard of this, where a man wanted to propose to a Niqabi sister and he went to her home, and then she refused to take off her niqab. This is a little too difficult now. So that is misplaced wara. That is, because you're actually defying the consensus. The consensus is that you could show the face. This is by consensus. So if you refuse to show the face to someone who's proposing to you, then it is a little bit of a misplaced wara. Wara is what? Cautious piety. Or pious caution. It could be both. So what can the woman do? So we're saying that he would be seeking out a good wife, and we said that he would look for. He would ask about her beauty first, and then he will try to figure out if she's religious, so that his final decision, whether it is acceptance or rejection, is based on her deen, her religiosity, not her looks. So what can the woman do if she is interested in getting married? Or can she do anything? Or should she wait around until someone proposes to her? I said here that it is okay. It seems like from reading some of the reports from the Sahaba that when a woman wanted to get married, she just did some different things. And particularly the hadith of Subay'ah, which is reported by Imam Muslim and Imam Ahmad, is particularly telling of the fact that when they do want to get married, they just took better care of their appearance. That does not mean that she will take off her hijab. It just means that she will take better care of her appearance. And this hadith, particularly in the reports when Subay'ah's husband died, what she did, وَتَعَلَّقْ مِنْ نِفَاسِهَا, and when she ended her waiting period by giving birth to the child that she bore, she was pregnant when he died. And this is after Hajjat al-Wada', by the way, so this is very late, so we cannot say that this is abrogated by the verses of hijab, which is one of the proofs on the permissibility of showing the face and hands for those who believe that it is permissible. But Subay'ah was met by Abu Sanabal ibn Ba'kak. In some reports, Abu Sanabal ibn Ba'kak entered in upon her, which means that she was at home, but in some reports, particularly Ahmad's report, he met her. So apparently he met her in the street, and he saw that she is tajammalat al-khuttab, that she beautified herself for the khuttab, suitors. And how did she do this? We can glean this from some of the reports where it said that she is iktahalat wa ikhtadabat. So iktahalat, put an eyeliner. Or it's kohla. Kohla is a particular type of eyeliners. Ikhtadabat, that is henna. Is that how you spell henna? Okay. That is the henna in the hands. Khidab is the henna in the hands. So it means that, yes, she could do, based on this, and certainly there is a lot of disagreement here. I'm not going into the controversy, because the controversy starts from, if she is allowed to show her face or not. But I'm taking the popular position of the majority that she's allowed to show her face and hands, and I'm building on this, that this hadith of Subay'ah meant that when she is interested in getting married, that she could do a little bit more in terms of taking care of her appearance. That is not to take off her hijab, but to take care of her appearance, to show that she is interested in getting married. And I also said that it may be acceptable for a woman to go to places just to be noticed. And this should not be perceived as suboptimal or dishonorable or anything like this. Because if she's interested in getting married, why do you think she has a need in getting married like her male counterpart? Why is it that her brother can go out and be looking and actively pursuing, and then particularly in a country like this, or a community like ours, or an environment like this where Muslims are scattered out through a continent, 6 million Muslims scattered out through a large continent, or less than 6 million Muslims, it may be harder. So to basically go out to places with the intent of being noticed, absolutely fine, absolutely halal, if not even desirable. So if she goes out to family and public events, conventions and so on to be noticed, she should not feel bad about this. Because she's doing this for an honorable cause, which is to get married, to get noticed, and subsequently or consequently get married. Sometimes also, like those matrimonial services, some people have different notions about the matrimonial services or perceptions of the matrimonial services, but they could be used. Anything that is halal and could be used. You practice, some precautions and take your precautions to make sure that you're not putting yourself in harm's way, but these things could be used. They had posed a question to us at Amja about this particular arrangement where they bring a large group of brothers and sisters to meet in a large room, and then they have tables where basically here, and the tables are numbered, so the brothers and sisters use the matrimonial services, and then the sister basically decides that she's interested in meeting those three suitors. So they have tables, and then they arrange for the brother and the sister in the presence of the awliya or in the presence of the guardians to meet one another. And then she could move from table 5, for instance, to table 7, and then she could move to table 18, because at certain times to meet with those particular brothers. Whether you like this arrangement or not, there is something that is very important we should understand. That whatever you like for yourself, your daughter, your sister, is not what is Islamically binding on me and everybody else. Whatever I like, and the preacher particularly needs to pay attention to this so that he does not get his own inclination and biases mixed with religious rulings. So there is a difference between what you like, what you prefer, and what is halal. So an arrangement like this, I felt it would be halal, but to make the best out of it, you need to exercise a lot of diligence in matching people just to preserve the honor of the sisters, in good matching, so that when she's moving from 5 to 7 to 18, these are actually good matches. So there is no unnecessary exposure to people that are not good matches. And you need to have the guardians present, not necessarily the guardians in the sense, or I actually should not say this, I would say family. So if she has her maternal or paternal aunt or mom, that's still okay. We're not getting married yet. So there is no need, because if you say that there is a need here for a mahram, you produce your proof, right? Where is your proof? Where is the need for a mahram? How could you prove it? There is no need for a mahram in particular, which is the sort of the male relative, like her father, her brother, and so on. So to have some family, this would be just a precautionary measure. Otherwise, if you said no family whatsoever, in the presence of all of those people, this is not seclusion either. What if a woman does not have family? What if it is a revert sister that doesn't have, Muslim family that would be willing to partake in an event like this? So it would be okay. We're just adding this as a precautionary measure to add more safety and propriety to the whole scenario. So you exercise due diligence in good matching. You have some family members present, and allow the family members to be present in this room. And if you want to do this, then this is fine. Certainly, if a particular sister is known in the community by her, a particular sister is active and she is known in the community and she gets suitors every other day, we will certainly tell her you don't need any of the above. You don't need to, sort of take care of your appearance a little bit more than usual. You don't need to go to events and places to be noticed. You don't need this matrimonial services and matching business and go into these particular events of matching. You don't need any of the above, and we would prefer for you that you don't do any of this. Why are you doing it if you're getting a lot of suitors to your doorsteps? But this is for the rest of the people. Finally, it would be permissible because we were talking about what the sisters could do, because there is like a problem, that you can't always ignore, overlook those problems as if they don't exist. So there is a problem, particularly for the sisters, to find good suitors, because we said that their exposure, their mixing with sisters can only marry Muslim men. So if she needs to be able to have like some exposure. If she is, we said that it is not usual that you would be seeking out a suitor. What is usual is for the man to seek out the woman. And that would be the default. But is it haram for a sister to seek out a suitor and to propose to a suitor? No, it's not haram. And Thabit al-Bunani reported this from Anas ibn Malik, that a woman came and proposed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then you see where the culture here comes in, and the daughter of Anas ibn Malik heard this, and she said, shame, shame. How could she do this? Shame, shame. Because, that is the cultural part. So Anas ibn Malik said to her, she's better than you. She was interested in the best of humanity, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so she offered herself to him. She offered herself to him in marriage. That's a halal thing, so if a woman wants to propose, that's fine, it's halal if she wants to do that. It's not the default, it is not what's customary, but it should not be perceived as haram or anything like that. Now someone could say, the Prophet ﷺ instructed, this Sahabi that came and he said, I proposed to a woman, instructed him in looking, and he said, have you looked? Go and look, because there is something in the eyes of the Ansar. Someone could say, but looking is not enough. Is looking enough? Well, someone could say, looking is not enough. How do I come to know her? In these forms of arranged marriages. How do I get to know her? And this would be a justifiable question. Why? Because the Sahaba lived in, if you know the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca is basically Mecca. That the city of Mecca was the size of the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca now. Or about that size, just a little bit more, and some people may have lived in the outskirts and so on. But their cities, their villages, they used to be very small, and the population is very small. So you would expect them to know much more about each other than we do nowadays. So if a brother came from San Francisco and he looked at her once, and she's okay, and she looked at him once and she found him to be okay, it may still be not enough to proceed with marriage. That is justifiable. So in this case, we say the following. First of all, no one said that you need to propose once you have looked at her or him once. You could have a lot of visitation, a lot of discussions prior to the engagement. But these need to be in the presence of some family members, not mahrams, family members. Because the presence of mature family members will add this safety and propriety and remove the problem of khalwa, seclusion. Okay. So you have some family members and you have a lot of discussions and talks and things like that until you're comfortable. And then after, yes, for the reverts, they could have friends. Yeah, friends would be just like family members in this case. Yes. At the end of the day, because ittaqullaha mastata'tum, fear Allah as much as you can. Let us say a revert could not arrange for a friend to be present. She meets him in the public library. That's fine. She meets him in a public place. That is fine. Yes.
I didn't notice that there's no prohibition for several witnesses in discussion until you feel comfortable. Given there is no seclusion or physical contact. And then after I said the exemption only pertains to looking. I didn't understand that part.
So there is no touching, meaning there is nothing, when it comes to engagement, what the exemption here is that you are allowed to look, but you are not allowed to touch. Because a lot of people do, at least some forms of mild touching, but that is not even permissible.
So there's no limitation to the number of looks?
Yes, no limitation to the number of looks. Until you're completely satisfied that she's okay, and then you could pray, and then afterwards you need to proceed. So Islam gave us like a sort of a multi-phased process here. First, before the engagement, Islam allowed you to sit down and look. And even according to the stronger position in the Hanbali madhab, remember just the Hanbali madhab, she does not need to be in her hijab. She will need to be in what customarily appears. So he's looking at her now like the same way she will be at home with him. Not exactly the same way, but at least there is no scarf. She's showing her hair, her face, her neck, feet, hands, so on. So this is before engagement. And then they will sit down and talk, like I said, at this family, friends. And then for those who don't have one and don't have two people are present, public place, just to make sure that there is no seclusion and you could talk as much as you can and look as much as you want until you're comfortable that she's the right person. And then the same applies to her. When it comes to looking, we're talking about him versus her, because looking is more, the scholars have been always more lenient as far as women looking at men. There is more leniency there than men looking at women. It is, the strictness applies to men more than it applies to women. But then after the engagement, you could continue also with this. Basically, you could visit her at home, but you want to highlight, underscore the fact that engagement is not basically, this is not basically a minor marriage. Because some people treat engagement as a minor marriage, which is absolutely incorrect. Engagement does not give any privileges to anyone except for talking and looking, and that's it. And looking is limited to becoming comfortable that yes, she is the right person. And then afterwards, and everybody, keep in mind that we cannot always use numbers, and we cannot always be like too objective about the rulings and give you a number. You can look for half an hour, 3 times a week for 2 weeks. That would be a prescription for a cough medicine. And some people want this. Sometimes when you say to the people, women should not wear things that are attractive, and then they want you to say she cannot wear anything except black, navy, or gray. I can't. You can't give her numbers of colors. She's to go to the fabric store and give them like numbers. There has to be some level of subjectivity, some level of, self-regulation. She should not wear something that is attractive. That varies in different environments to a great extent. And the Prophet did not say these colors are okay, these colors are not okay. And the same applies here. You cannot say the period, the duration, but you could say that you are entrusted with this. You're dealing with Allah who sees, the inner crevices of your heart and your mind. So don't think that you will be able to deceive Allah. No one can. So you will be looking until you're comfortable that she's the right person, and then that's it. You quit. You quit. You either move on to the next step, which is getting contracted, or if you're not going to move on to the next step, which is getting contracted, there should not be more, basically looking and talking and stuff like this. Unless you want to talk to be comfortable with, her expectations, his expectations, and so on and so forth. But in this case, she could put on her hijab, like usual, and it would be very sort of formal, appropriate discussion. So that is, before engagement, and then getting contracted, which is another step. And this step, I value this step so much because between getting contracted and the consummation of marriage, here is our chance as Muslims, and not all of us will need to use this step in this way, but for those who are interested in sort of, some form of halal premarital dating, that's here. That is here. That is when you can have halal premarital. It's not premarital, by the way, because you're married. It is halal pre-consummation, pre-moving in, dating. And that should only be here. That is not here, that is not here, and that is certainly not here. But it is only here, between this and this. So to get contracted, that is the aqd, right? To have the aqd. The aqd is the contract of marriage. And this will be either called nikah by some scholars, or nikah by other scholars will pertain to the consummation. But anyway, we do have different steps. Nikah, aqd and bina. Aqd and bina, consummation. Moving in together. And this is when you can have a lot of liberty to get to know one another better. Keep in mind that at the end of all of this, once you get married, you may still find out that you have not really gotten to know him or her well, because there are lots of things that will only appear after consummation, after you move in together, after you become partners in this, corporation. Yes.
Before the engagement and after the engagement. After the engagement, still it's not permissible for them to be secluded by alone, and still the family member or somebody has to be present.
Yeah, that is why I keep on saying that the engagement is not any, it is not partial marriage, it is not minor marriage, it's nothing. It would only allow looking. That's it.
With somebody in the family member, that's my question. Or without any family member.
Okay, I said family, friends, people, because the safest, most appropriate is in the presence of family members. But that does not mean, by the way, that the family members would be hovering over them all the time. It just means that at home, so they could be in a room, and then you could excuse yourself and step out. You're not going to close doors or anything. So it is not seclusion by the technical definition of seclusion, but you're just giving them a little bit of room so you could go out and mind your business and do anything and allow them some private time. But it is in the presence of family because they are here at home, in the presence of family. So it is not like the family member is hovering over them or sitting, 2 feet away from the husband or in the middle between them. It doesn't have to happen this way. You're just in the presence of family without seclusion. Revered sisters, people who don't have family, etc., friends will do. You cannot arrange for a friend to come with you. A public place will do. Yes.
Two questions. One, so what I'm understanding is there really is no difference between before engagement and after engagement from the perspective of fiqh. Is that correct?
That's true, except that for one who is proposing to a woman, he is entitled to looking at more than what she would usually show. But that is limited to, head, neck, the hair. The head means the hair, the neck, the hands and feet. And that is only in the Hanbali madhab also, because in the other madhab, she does not show she doesn't show the head. Yes.
When you say people, is this only Muslims? Is it Muslim knowledge?
People does not have to be Muslims. Yeah.
At which stage does she stop taking suitors or seeing suitors?
At which stage she stops taking suitors?
At the engagement, or can she still see another suitor?
No, if she cannot see another suitor, and this is the next one here, the next point. She cannot see another suitor after she basically approves of the engagement. But until she gives him her word, then she could be looking for other suitors. And you keep in mind that they keep on talking about arranged marriages and arranged marriages. This is not really arranged marriage. This is very, if you go through the Islamic steps, it is basically very thought out marriage. It is very well-informed marriage. Because before you move to this consummation, you had enough exposure, you had enough interaction. But at the end of the day, keep in mind that they could be living together, in the mainstream culture, they could be living together for 7 years, and then they move in together and get married, and then they divorce in the first year. Because before is never like after. That marriage thing is consequential, is big, is consequential. So they could be living together in 7 years, they already had 2 or 3 kids attending the wedding, and then they have a divorce in the first year. So part of it is you have to rely on Allah, you have to put your trust in Allah. You make your best judgment about this particular person being suitable or not, and put your trust in Allah, and then after the consummation, the good thing about Islam is that it does not lock you into this relationship forever if it is a failed relationship. It certainly tells you, you have to keep it, you have to be dutiful to it, and so on, but it does not tell you you're locked into this relationship, and that is part of the legislation or legislatory miracle of Islam. So that the permissibility of divorce, people nowadays, so the church has been fighting this for centuries, and they just have to give in. No one will listen. No one will stay in a failed relationship forever, just to destroy everybody involved in this failed relationship. So Islam says Islam says divorce is haram, by the way, which we'll come to talk about, per default. Divorce could be any one of the 5 legal values, but per default it is haram. That's the Hanafi madhab, and that is Ibn Taymiyyah's choosing of the 4 madhab. Although he was Hanbali, but he sided with the Hanafis on this one, that the default for divorce is impermissibility, not karaha, not only that it is disliked, because of the harm that it causes to the divorcee. Particularly, we're talking about unjustifiable divorce here. We're talking about the man decided that, he lived with her enough, he wants to try something else. And then he divorces her. Do you think that this would be just makruh? I don't believe that. So this would be haram because it is an unjustifiable divorce. It's an unwarranted, unjustifiable divorce. Yes?
How about they cannot physically meet? Maybe it might be in 2 different countries. What are the guidelines when it comes to communication, like for example, emailing or text messaging? Are they allowed to share pictures? So can you go over that?
Yes, so if they, basically whatever is halal in the real world is halal in the virtual world, and whatever is haram in the real world is haram in the virtual world. So you could have Skype talks or Skype conferences, meetings with here and here and here. After getting contracted, you can travel together. We said this. You could have seclusion. You could travel together. There is only a promise that you will not consummate the marriage, but you could basically exchange affection and travel together and things of that nature. It's just that you're not having intercourse before consummation and moving in. But here and here, in the virtual world, you could have, video conferencing and things of that nature. And she will be able to show the same thing that she was showing in the real world. If that is secure, and I'm not really an IT expert, I don't allow my family, even if they have a discussion with me, to because I have this paranoia from that virtual world. But I would not allow my family to take off their hijab because I don't know who else is looking when we're having a Skype sort of chat. But if it is secure, let us say that there is no one else looking, then it would be the same thing as in the real world. It depends on your comfort level with the virtual world. Can they exchange pictures? Yes, they could exchange pictures. But in this case also, it depends on the amount of security. So when it comes to the Skype and the pictures and so on, stick to the majority. Stick to the Hanafi, Maliki, and Shafi'i position, which is also a position within the Hanbali madhab. We're talking about the face and hands only. Limit that Hanbali position to where there is actually a real meeting in a physical place that is controlled at her home. And then a suitor came in and she wanted to show him how she looks, how she would look at home. And in this case, the Hanbali position may be acceptable. Yes?
The unshown, like the idea is you're trying to see, not to be deceived, at least from what I understand. How about like disclose maybe medical condition, maybe legal condition in the country, maybe financial condition that has to be exposed, something like this. Is there any obligations or is just the ijab and qabul? Like you see me like this and don't worry about like my legal status in the country or my medical condition?
Okay. That's a good question. Certainly if you lie, lying is haram, right?
I'm not lying, I'm not disclosing.
Okay. If she is not asking the appropriate question, or he is not asking the appropriate question, how much do you need to disclose without the other party asking? You don't need to disclose much without the other party asking. They need to ask. Unless there is something that is consequential, materially consequential to the essence of marriage itself. If you have HIV, you need to disclose that. If you are incapable of marital relations for some reason or another, you need to disclose that. That is materially consequential to the essence of marriage. So you need to disclose it without being asked. But if it is not materially consequential to the essence of marriage, what marriage is about, then the other party needs to ask the right questions. And you do not need to disclose them voluntarily. We're talking about you do not need to. Should you? Absolutely. Is it better? Is it more graceful, gracious, candid, appropriate, all of that? Absolutely. You should let her or him know as much as possible about you so that this decision is a well-informed decision. But if let us say you have seizures, do you have to tell your wife that I have a seizure disorder?
That would be a good idea.
It would be a good idea because otherwise she could be frightened when you start to seize. But do you have to? No, because it is not materially consequential to the essence of marriage. Should you? Yes, because it is something that, put yourself in her place. Would you be interested in knowing beforehand that, the other party has seizure disorder, diabetes, something of that nature? As far as the financial status, you don't need to tell, but that is very expected, and I can't imagine that in our times there will be a woman that will not ask you about your financial status.
Legal status, the problem is
The legal status.
whenever they say that we don't have papers or something like this, they don't even look at it. He's disqualified from the get-go. So, he wants to at least get in and then explain why, and and I felt like this is deception. I personally felt like if this happened to my daughter, I would be very deceptive. I would be very offended.
Like we said, the more you tell, the better.
Make sure you guys.
Yeah.
Can I
Yes.
ask a question?
Mm.
Isn't it when you conceal something, especially about health, isn't that like, because you expect a healthy person, so if somebody has a seizure, has diabetes, has heart problems, these are chronic diseases and affect the children, so why should you should disclose these things, otherwise they're getting a defective product, if I take it. You must, otherwise you're deceived.
I said you should.
Oh, I thought you said you don't have to.
Yes, I said you don't have to. Should does not mean that you have to. And this is part of the introduction. I explained in the introduction that when we say, in Arabic, don't we have two different words? يجب أن ينبغي, يحري, يجدر. These are should. يجب, must.
But I think it's a yajib though.
Okay, so it is not must, because if I say must, then I have to produce a proof. Like a proof on, the obligation. And there is no proof unless it is materially consequential to the marriage and the essence of marriage itself. Then you must. But, and in this case, because we will come to the chapter of العيوب التي ينفسخ بها النكاح, the defects that will result in annulment. The scholars did not, overlook this subject. There are defects that will result in the right to annulment. The right to annulment is fasq. It is not divorce. It is as if it never existed. So it is as if the contract was inconsequential, void. If there were defects that were hidden, that are substantial and very consequential to marriage. But being diabetic is not one of those.
When it affects the children, many times it affects the long-term relationship, ability to keep your hands, your limbs, your eyesight. There are a lot of, I'm not saying it is a bad thing, but it should be disclosed.
Should.
I think it's consulting not to let the person know. It's both the ways. If it is known, it should.
It is certainly better, and the more transparent this process is, the better it is. Let me just finish the one thing so that we could take a little break. The one thing that I wanted to end with is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, تنكح المرأة لأربع. And do I need to go into much detail about this hadith? A woman is married for 4 reasons. The beauty, the lineage, the wealth, and religiosity. So marry the religious woman that you may prosper. This hadith is self-explanatory. And as we said, that what you will be looking for is everything else first, as Imam Ahmad said, so that the final decision is made on the basis of, now, I like how she looks, I'm okay with her family, I don't care if she makes a lot of money or not, or if I care if she makes a lot of money, and I'm happy with all of that. Then, I ask about how religious she is, so that I could make my final decision based on religiosity. Rejection or acceptance will be based on her religiosity. Can you flip this? Is it applied both ways? Absolutely. It is up to her, the woman will accept the one that she is comfortable with. What may be a little bit problematic in flipping this, the criteria, making them applicable to women also, is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, ما إذا جاءكم من ترضون دينه وخلقه فزوجوه إلا تفعلوا تكن فتنة في الأرض وفساد عريض. If someone that you're comfortable with his deen and his manners proposes to you, then you sort of give him your proteges, that is your the woman under your care, give him your protege in marriage, lest it will be much corruption on earth. It mentioned two criteria only. So does that mean that the first one that knocks the door, who satisfies the two criteria, you have to say yes to him as a woman? No, it is not. Because the hadith of Fatima radiallahu anha, when two men proposed to her and the Prophet ﷺ advised her to marry Osama, what did he say about Muawiyah? He said Abu Jahl beats his wives, beats women, so don't marry him. And he said about Muawiyah, as for Muawiyah, he is broke, he doesn't have any money. So that is not deen and manners here, So you could say that beating women is not good manners. But what about the money? He said to her, don't marry him, he's broke. So that indicates that no, she does not have to say yes to the first knocker or the first suitor that comes by. So she has the right to basically look at everything else. But all of these things are matters of what? Matters of preference and taste. The Prophet is saying that the things that should make you reject the proposal in principle are the deen and khuluq. That would make you not entertain the proposal are the deen and khuluq, deen and manners, religiosity and manners. So if there is religiosity and manners, you're entertaining the proposal. But then if she doesn't like how he looks, she is entitled to say no as much as he is entitled to picking the woman whose appearance is desirable to him. So she is entitled to all of that, but in principle, you will not reject any proposal unless there is a problem with deen or khuluq, then you should not entertain the proposal to begin with. Then we will stop here and then we'll just come back, not for, too long, inshallah, to talk about the second proposal and getting multiple proposals at the same time. And we'll come back in 10 minutes. So we're done with that part, the first part of khutbah, and then we have 2 points to discuss about khutbah. One of the 2 points is the multiple proposals, or proposing to a woman that had been proposed to before. And the last one is which woman can you propose to in terms of the women that are in the waiting period, can you propose to them or not? So, Ibn Qudamah rahimahullah said, ولا يخطب الرجل على خطبة أخيه إلا ألا يسكن إليه ولا يخطب الرجل على خطبة أخيه إلا ألا يسكن إليه. You could write it this way, or you could write it Allah. ولا يخطب الرجل على خطبة أخيه. Where means grant? لا, he does not. لا يخطب, he does not propose. الرجل means the man. Does not propose. على خطبة أخيه. على means hereafter. It means on, usually. Here means after. خطبة أخيه, the proposal of his wife, of his brother. إلا except ألا يسكن إليه, except if he was not accepted or he was not how do I translate this? He has not been accepted, except if he has not been accepted. If he has not been accepted. Yuskan, you know what second means? Settlement, yeah, to settle to. So they did not settle. They did not show him that they have settled for it. This is certainly a matter of consensus, but when does it become a matter of consensus? That is after the acceptance, not before. Not before. The hadith, you have the hadith here in front of you. It is from al-Bukhari and Muslim. Abdullah ibn Umar reported from the Prophet ﷺ that he said, وَلَا يَخْتِبُ الرَّجُلُ عَلَى خِطْبَةِ أَخِيهِ حَتَّى يَتْرُكَ الْخَاطِبَ قَبْلَهُ أَوْ يَأْذَنَ لَهُ الْخَاطِبُ. So the hadith is basically the same meaning here. But at the end, حَتَّى يَتْرُكَ الْخَاطِبَ, until the one who proposed before him lets go, أَوْ يَأْذَنَ لَهُ الْخَاطِبُ, or gives him permission. So he lets go or gives him permission. So it is very possible that he would say, I proposed to that woman, she's a great woman, but in case she refuses me, why don't you go ahead and propose to her as well? Because you want the best for your brother as well. So
Is she forbidden from accepting?
No, she is not forbidden from accepting proposals unless she had shown to the first one acceptance. So she said to the first one, okay, we're engaged. He went, everybody knows now that Fulana, ex-woman, is makhtubat Fulan, is the fiancé of this man. Up until that point, multiple proposals could be made. And multiple proposals could be made on which basis? The hadith in which, Fatima and the two men proposed to her, and the Prophet came and said to her, don't marry Abu Jahl, he beats women. Don't marry Muawiyah, he's broke, he doesn't have money. Marry Osama. And then if we say that the Prophet ﷺ forbade us from doing this, then it would be even worse to approach a woman that is already married, which some people do, nowadays. So, to approach a woman that is already married is actually a great sin, and it would qualify as a kabira, because the Prophet said laysa minna, and the laysa minna ones would qualify as a kabira. Laysa minna, he's not one of us. Man khabbaba imra'atan ala zawjiha. He is not one of us who turns a woman against her husband. خبب امرأة على زوجها, who turns a woman against her husband.
Can you say in Arabic?
ليس منا من خبب امرأة على زوجها. This was reported authentically by Abu Dawood, and Albani authenticated it. ليس منا من خبب امرأة على زوجها. He's not one of us who turns a woman against her husband. Takhbib is to ruin her for him, basically. And certainly the worst way of tahbib is to propose to her or to convince her that you should divorce him so that I marry you. And that even applies to the woman that is raj'iyya, the woman that was divorced in her waiting period, if the divorce was not a finalized divorce as we would come to see. So now, for her to be accepting proposals, she's forbidden from this. As a woman, as a married woman, if she is basically accepting proposals or showing that she is accepting proposals, some married women could be doing this. Because she may be interested in, having something different. So that certainly is another kabira, another enormity. Because the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of Thawban, which is reported by Tirmidhi and Abu Dawood, أيما امرأة سألت زوجها طلاقا في غير ما بأس فحرام عليها رائحة الجنة. Whenever a woman asks her husband for a divorce without a justifying hardship, the fragrance of paradise is forbidden to her. Whenever a woman asks her husband for a divorce without a justifying hardship, the fragrance of paradise will be forbidden to her. أيما امرأة سألت زوجها طلاقا في غير ما بأس فحرام عليها رائحة الجنة. So this is very serious business, yes.
Question regarding the proposal. What if the person doesn't know that the woman already has a proposal, or is it obligation on the man to find out if there is a proposal already on the women, or because let's say I'm not in the town, so I see somebody and I'm interested, or how does it go?
No, it is not an obligation to find out if the woman has been proposed to before or not, but it will be known, and if it is not known, then you will basically go and speak with someone, and they will tell you, because eventually you'll go and tell them that I want to come and visit you at home. Someone will tell you along the way, that she is makhtuba, that she is engaged. So that is that, and I think that this is self-explanatory, right? It is, but it is very serious business. It is a very serious business. There is nothing that is more harmful to the fabric of the society than competing for spouses. Is it clear or not, rational or not? That nothing will tear apart the fabric of the society and hurt the brotherhood between the believers than competing for spouses. Then Imam Ibn Qudamah rahimahullah said, وَلَا يَجُوزُ التَّصْرِيحُ بِخِطْبَةِ مُعْتَدَّةٍ. Khitbah, by the way, is the right word. Khutbah means the speech that we give in Jum'ah. Khitbah is engagement. وَلَا يَجُوزُ التَّصْرِيحُ بِخِطْبَةِ مُعْتَدَّةٍ وَيَجُوزُ التَّعْرِيض بِخِطْبَةِ الْبَاءٍ خاصة فيقول لا تفوتيني بنفسك وأنا في مثلك لراغب ونحو ذلك. ولا يجوز التصريح بخطبة معتدة. Okay. ولا يجوز. لا يجوز it is, and it is not permissible. And it is not permissible. التصريح بخطبة معتادة, to openly propose. تصريح, explicitly, openly, or explicit. To explicitly or openly propose. تصريح بخطبة معتادة, to openly propose to a معتادة. معتادة means what? A woman in her waiting period. A woman in her waiting period. ويجوز, and it is permissible, التلميح, to imply, to hint, insinuate, infer, hint, a proposal, بخطبة, hint a proposal, to al-ba'in. Al-ba'in means what? There are two different types of divorcees. Al-ba'in wal-raj'iyya. Al-ba'in means the divorcee who has a finalized divorce. Al-ba'in is a woman that had a finalized divorce. Sometimes they translate this as revocable and irrevocable. That would not be a good translation, because the word, you wouldn't understand this. The word irrevocable divorce that some people use, or the word revocable divorce that some people use, may indicate that if I take her back, that divorce does not count. It counts. She got divorced once. It will count against you as one. So the word revocable would infer that if I take her back in the waiting period, the divorce did not count. It counted by agreement. So that is why it is better to say finalized, unfinalized. And we will come to discuss all the types of divorce and when it is finalized and when it is unfinalized. And when it is finalized before the end of the period, it is always finalized after the end of the period, right? Because when she ends her waiting period, that's finalized divorce. Finalized with recourse, without recourse is a different issue, which is al-baynuna al-kubra and al-baynuna al-sughra. Finalized without recourse is after the third divorce, baynuna al-kubra. Finalized with recourse is before the third divorce, al-baynuna al-sughra. So the word finalized is better, but there are so many types, so we'll come to this when we come to discuss divorce. Al-ba'in is the one who had a finalized divorce. So he would say, فيقول, he would say, لا تفوتيني بنفسك. How do I translate this? It was, okay. He would say, don't marry someone else. You know, I translated the meaning because it's really very tough to translate it verbatim. How do you translate it verbatim? Yeah, okay.
Don't go by with leaving me behind or something.
Don't leave me behind.
Don't pass me
Yeah.
up. Don't pass me up.
Don't pass me up. But it's,
Yeah, I like that.
no, thank you. Well, these are good things, yeah. Don't pass me up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Or he would say, إني في مثلك لراغب, I am interested in someone like you, not in you, because this would be openly proposing, interested in someone like you. Okay, وَنَحْوَ ذَلِكَ and the likes. So what does this show you? It shows you, like, what we learn from this is that divorcees and widows, as we said last time, they were desirable, so desirable by the companions that they did not even wait for them to finish their waiting period. You know, it's and which is a sign of the health of the community, because you know those divorcees and widows are not treated like undesirable suitors or partners. They were very desirable, that they competed for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي مَا عَرَّضْتُمْ بِهِ مِنْ خِطْبَةِ النِّسَاءِ أَوْ أَكْنَنْتُمْ فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ, which is the basis of this, of the rulings concerning this issue, is a verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, or part of a verse in Surah Al-Baqarah. It is in front of you. وَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي مَا عَرَّضْتُمْ بِهِ مِنْ خِطْبَةِ النِّسَاءِ أَوْ أَكْنَنْتُمْ فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ. And there is no, and the translation here would be, and there is no sin on you if you make a hint of betrothal or conceal it in yourself. This hint, this ayah, by agreement, applies to which women? Widows. By agreement applies to widows in their waiting period, which used to be 4 months and 10 days, or until childbirth. So, but widows used to wait 4 months and 10 days, and then you're afraid that someone will beat you to her. So, and your husband died. So after a little bit of time, you know, not in the janazah, probably. You wait a couple of days for this, you know, consideration. But, and then you go and tell her, you tell her someone like you would get married in a blink of an eye. You tell her something that indicates interest, that is indirect. Indirect out of respect for the fact that she is in her waiting period. And indirect so that she's, you know, you think that this is, you have to really think about the wisdom and the beauty of these legislations, because she is emotionally unstable. Allah wanted to give her a period to get her act together, to get her emotions together before she feels pressured into another marriage. Now she cannot tell you, yes, marry me. She is being barred from this because Allah wanted her to get herself together first, and then you will propose indirectly. She cannot, you know, accept the proposal. You cannot proceed. Someone else will propose indirectly. So at the end of the 4 months and 10 days, she knows that these people are interested. Yes, this may be suitable, maybe not suitable. I should wait around a little bit more. I should get married now. But Allah tells us that, you know, you should not clearly, openly, explicitly propose to her, because she needs to take her time. Among the other wisdoms, you can never say that this is the wisdom of the legislation, because you are not Allah. And Allah only knows the complete wisdom of the legislation. But you could reflect on potential wisdoms as a human being. So that is an extremely wise ruling. But this applied to widows. We have widows and we have divorcees. And now we're talking about proposing in the waiting period. That is the topic now. We're talking about proposing to a woman in her waiting period. She is one of two things: widow, divorcee. divorcee will include annulment and all of these issues. But her husband has either died or separated from her. Yes?
Real situation. The couple decides to divorce, but the wife is sure she doesn't want to be with the man anymore. They go to the imam. The imam, I guess because of the man not really wanting to divorce or whatever have you, but the wife saying, I want nothing to do with the husband. I want to divorce. She says, I want to be divorced. The imam says, you have to go to the court first, get divorced to the court first, and then you bring me the paperwork, and then I'll divorce you in terms of the masjid. What would be her waiting period to divorce, to the courthouse, her putting in the application and going through the legal processes takes 6 months, a year and a half. What happens during that time for her?
So the imam gave her a divorce?
The imam said no until she brings the paperwork from the court.
Okay, so from the time the imam gives her the divorce, and in these cases, it would be like at Umdat, the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, we have a family code that will be published online that has basically all the laws, crafted for Muslims living in the West, with all of the sensitivities taken in consideration, and all of the peculiarities of the Muslim condition or situation in the West taken in consideration. So we have family laws, the quote for family laws that could be used, and it is made like in clauses, legal clauses, like laws are written, so that it is easy for the individual practicing the imam to look up things and to follow them. So look out for this when it comes out, when it gets published, because we're already done with the review and everything, and it will be published very soon.
So her waiting period is
But-
until the imam divorces her?
Yeah, but in that family law or code of family laws, we said that it would be very, very encouraged and helpful to have panels of arbitrators versus single imams in matters of divorce, particularly when you will want to enforce divorce. Because imams do not have the same jurisdiction like judges in Muslim countries. They do not have the same authority, they do not have the same power, the same level of acceptance like judges in Muslim countries. If you are upset with the judge, he's the judge. But for imams, it is best that you have a panel of 2 or 3 imams sitting on cases of this nature to avoid contention in the future, particularly between the husband and the particular imam. Having said that, when that panel, or if it is a single imam, it's not really recommended, but if that panel or a single imam gave her a divorce, from the time the imam gives her the divorce, she counts her waiting period. She was not living with a man for 6 months. That's fine. She still counts from this day. It is not about living with a man, because the fact that they are married is what matters, not whether they're having marital relations, because people cannot judge who's having, judges cannot really figure out who's having marital relations or not. So the rulings were not tied to having marital relations. The rulings were tied to the state of marriage, the state of being married. So from the end of the state of being married, which is the divorce, that is pronounced by the husband or enforced by the court or the panel of arbitrators, she counts a waiting period. Now, all of the scholars, because this ayah pertains to the widows, agreed by consensus that you can hint a proposal to a widow. You can hint. explicitly no haram for any woman in her waiting period, but hint of betrothal, proposal to widows by consensus. Now, divorcees are of two types. One is al-raj'iyya, and one is al-ba'in. We're talking about divorcees that are still in their waiting period. Al-raj'iyya, the one who has none or unfinalized divorce. She is in her waiting period after the first or second divorce that is not khul, that is not in exchange for compensation, where she gives him the mahr and walks away. That is a raj'iyya, the one with unfinalized divorce. Al-ba'in is the one with finalized divorce. So, al-ba'in is which one? After the third divorce. After the third divorce, she is ba'in. She is in her waiting period, but her divorce is finalized. Meaning what? There is no right of raja'ah for the husband. There is no right for taking her back. Raja'ah means taking her back. We could translate it as restoration of marriage for the husband. He doesn't have that right. Okay? So now this ba'in, by consensus, and this is a sign of consensus, by consensus, al-raj'iyya, you cannot hint anything to her. The widow, by consensus, you can hint a proposal to her. Al-raj'iyya, her husband divorced her the first time. She is still in her waiting period. If you indicate anything to her, if you imply, infer, insinuate, that is a kabira, because you're ruining the woman for her husband. And
when we say that she is in the period of her idda, how can a stranger person be hinting her for, how can you do it directly? Just a question. I don't understand.
no, how could people lie and steal and do all of these things? So the person, like her, basically co-worker, she knows that her husband divorced her, and he tells her that someone like you would be desirable, would be.
Especially for the widows that don't go out of their houses much, if not needed, they don't go out of their houses. So how can a stranger directly hint like that?
He comes and extends condolences to her at home, or he meets her out in the market because she went out to bring in food or something like this, and he takes the chance to tell her that he's interested. Well, it is not a good thing, but it is like, for the widow it's different. For the widow it is acceptable, it is permissible. But for the raj'iyya, the one with unfinalized divorce, a woman after the first or second divorce who is still in her waiting period, her husband is entitled to restoration of the marriage without her approval, and without a new contract, and without a dowry. This is basically a restoration, the power of restoration or the power of raj'ah. Because Allah said, وَبُعُولَتُهُنَّ حَقُّ بِرَبِّهِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ, and their husbands have the entitlement to taking her back فِي ذَلِكَ, in that period, which is that waiting period. Then you have this disagreement here. So by consensus, and usually when you study fiqh from the margins and go inward, because there is always, you will most often find agreement on both sides, both margins, extremes, and you work your way inward to figure out the disagreement. So that is extremely important to know when they agreed. They agreed on this extreme, they agreed on that extreme, and in the middle they disagreed. So the extremes here are the widows. They agreed that you could hint a proposal to her in her waiting period. Al-Raj'iyya, the one with unfinalized divorce, they agreed that he cannot hint a proposal to her in her waiting period. Al-Ba'in looks like this in some way and looks like this in some way. And that is when the text of revelation is silent, and that is when ijtihad is excusable. The text of revelation addressed widows in particular. This one is considered a married woman still until her divorce is finalized. She is still a zawja until her divorce is finalized, so the text of Revelation addressed to her. The text of Revelation stayed silent on this one, finalized divorce, because she looks like someone whose husband died, because that husband he cannot take her back. He doesn't have the power to take her back. And she looks like this one because her husband did not die, he is still there. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah said what? You cannot propose to her. Why? Because it will result in contention between the believers, because even though her husband is incapable of taking her back, she is still in her waiting period from that man, and it will be offensive to that husband that you're proposing to his divorcee in her waiting period. Okay, then if you don't like this, and that is the reason why. But it is not a matter of liking. It is not a matter of just like, but anyway, Imams Malik and Shafi'i and Ahmad said that he can propose to her because her husband cannot take her back. Yes?
Chef, are you talking about hinting, the proposal knowing, or the actual? You're talking about hinting, right?
There is no explicit proposal that is permissible to any woman in her waiting period, period. Yeah. Yes.
So these proposals, again, fall in the same category as the previous proposal what we talked about, meaning if I know there is a widow and she's in a waiting period, I want to give her a hint, but if I know somebody else gave her a hint already, can I do it? Or no, it's still fall in the same category as the previous proposal, what we discussed, where if you know the woman has a proposal, you cannot give a proposal, second proposal. Do we have to follow that rule also?
In this period, she can take 127 proposals because she would never be able to show acceptance of anyone. She will not be a fiancée when she is still in her waiting period. She will have to wait after the waiting period. So basically, 200 people could hint to her that, we're interested. When you're done with the waiting period, we will formally propose, and you could accept, and you could become a fiancé. Yes?
Going back to divorces, what are the requirements in regards to who must be present or don't have to be present in regards to a divorce being agreed upon, either from the husband or wife's perspective?
When you propose to a woman,
No, during a divorce, is there a requirement as to who has to be present? Does it have to be present?
We'll get to the process.
requirement when you propose, not when you divorce. When you divorce a woman, is there... Okay, so when a man divorces his wife, or when a woman, gets a khula from her husband, should there be witnesses, or is that what you're saying? Like people, the witnesses are recommended according to the vast majority, obligatory in the case of raja'ah, restoration, according to a small minority, a position in the Shafi'i madhab and a position in the Hanbali madhab. But according to the agreement of Ahl Sunnah, it is not mandatory in divorce. So let's just take them one by one. Divorce, by the agreement of Ahl Sunnah, having witnesses is recommended, not obligatory.
From both sides, if the woman is divorcing the husband or the man is divorcing the wife.
The woman is never divorcing the husband. Okay, but she could divorce him, by the way. No, she could divorce him if he gave her the right to divorce according to a position, in particularly in the Hanbali method. But it's a controversial issue. But you're not absolutely wrong. But this is basically, some of the scholars said that this is not that she's divorcing him. She's been giving the power of attorney to initiate the divorce. That is his own entitlement, his own right, but he made her an agent. So she could divorce herself from him as his agent. But the woman can obtain khula. And we will talk in the chapters of divorce and khula about the wisdom of legislation here and why is it that the divorce was given to one party and not to the other party. But the other party was giving like an alternative route to seek separation. But no witnesses are needed. No witnesses are needed in the khula that is agreed to by the man. So if she wants khula and he tells her, give me my mahr back and I will give you a divorce, and she gives him his mahr back, he gives her a divorce, that is called khula. No witnesses are needed. But the enforced khula, you don't need witnesses, but you need a judge to enforce it, to enforce the khula. Yeah. But it is a form of khula because it is تطليق. ما هو الخلع بتاع فاطمة اللي حصل كان تطليق من النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. But he will get. But this is a different story. هو خلعها منه أو طلقها. خلعها منه, he gave her khula, that is in return for an exchange for the dowry. So the qadi forces the khula. In this case, khula is a form of divorce, by the way. According to the majority, it is a divorce. It is just a divorce in exchange for money. The Hanbalis called it fasq, and there is controversy within the Hanbali madhab. But khula is a form of divorce. So the difference is that divorce is without compensation, من غير عوض, and khula is with compensation, which is to return his dowry back to him and to give up her financial rights if he demanded that. So in this case, when the qadi forces a khula in return for the dowry, or forces a divorce, when the qadi forces the divorce not in return for anything, because the qadi finds her request for divorce to be warranted because he abuses her in one form or another, he could do this. But if he does not find her request for divorce warranted, and she insists that she cannot live with this man, then there is this controversy whether the qadi could enforce the khula even though her request is unwarranted or not. And in the position that we will consider to be stronger in this book, we will give the qadi the right to enforce the khula even though the request is unwarranted. But in this case, he's enforcing talaq bi'awad. He's enforcing talaq in return for compensation. Basically, he's enforcing khula, because there is a compensation, because she will give him the dowry back.
That would be
Is
fine.
that clear?
That would be finalized.
He's enforcing khula. Because if he's enforcing talaq, talaq is bighayri awad. Talaq is without compensation. But he's here enforcing an exchange. He's telling her, give him his dowry back. He's telling him, she is divorced. So that means he's enforcing khula. Yes?
So which one is Khula fall into? Is it going to be a regular or
Al-khula will fall under this one. Because al-khula will give you a ba'in talaq, a finalized divorce, meaning the husband has no right of restoration, raja'a. But that is the different story, but with recourse or without recourse. The with recourse is when he has the right to initiate a new contract. So he proposes to her like anyone else. Without recourse is when he does not have this right. After the third divorce, he doesn't have the right to even initiate. He's not like anyone else. He's forbidden to her. He divorced her 3 times. Out of all the people that can marry her, this particular one cannot marry her. Yes?
So you said that you're not obligated to have a person present when you're giving a divorce. What about the restoration?
Restoration of marriage, it is obligatory according to the weaker position. And when I say the weaker, I am using the terminology, the technical terminology. It is not the weaker to me. It is basically the weaker to the main scholars of those madhahib. My own position, I will explain, I will point it out, because it's not haram to have your own position, and it is not arrogant or proud to have your own position. You will, at the end of the day, everybody has their own position. But when you use the terminology of the weaker position and the stronger position, you're using the terminology according to the scholars of the madhab, unless you clarify that you're talking about yourself. So the default is that I'm using their terminology. So I could say the weaker, and this is not the weaker to me. Okay, so the weaker position in the Shafi'i and Hanbali madhab, that having witnesses to restoration is obligatory. The stronger position in the Shafi'i and the Hanbali madhab, as well as the formal position of the Maliki and Hanafi madhabs, is that restoration does not require witnesses. Why is that when Allah said, وَأَشْهِدُوا ذَوَيْ عَدْلٍ مِنْكُمْ, and have to trustworthy witnesses witness that? Why is it so? Because they said that this command means preference, not obligation, because this is the right of the husband. This is not a trade where we're exchanging things that are not within it's not a trade where you're giving me money, I'm giving you a property, so we have witnesses, because you're not entitled to my money unless I willingly give it to you, or I'm not entitled to your property unless you willingly give it to me, and so we need witnesses. But here, the husband has the authority of restoration, because he is still within the waiting period. He does not need witnesses to take note of him exercising his authority, his right as a husband. Why is it important for him to have witnesses? Because if he took her back and her waiting period ends and she denies that he took her back, we will believe her, not believe him, if he did not have witnesses. So she will say, no, he did not take me back, and my waiting period is done, and I don't want them anymore. We'll believe her. Yes.
One other thing, so in my culture, I don't know, they always say that you have to say talaq word 3 times. Does that signify the 3, or does it signify for 1 time?
Okay.
So which?
Saying talaq once, there is a controversy over this. But the clearly stronger position is that the single talaq is what is the sunnah talaq. The controversy here is weak, that you have to say talaq 3 times. Because if you say talaq 3 times, you're making the divorce finalized without recourse from the first disagreement. So you disagreed with your wife, and if you are basically to divorce her 3 times, you're making it without recourse. So who would put himself in such, hardship, not having the option to go back, to reconsider?
So if somebody did say it 3 times, stupidly.
And then we will come to talk about Ibn Taymiyyah's position on the composite talaq, or the 3-fold talaq, which is the position that most of the laws in most of the Muslim countries uphold now. Most of the laws in the Muslim countries, particularly the countries unaware of their laws, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, those countries, they uphold Ibn Taymiyyah's position that the 3-fold composite divorce counts as 1. But historically, that is a minority position. The majority position is that the 3-fold composite divorce will count as 3. Okay.
Wasn't that changed though? Changed through the history. Because the Rasul counted it once, I think with Umar ibn Khattab, because people were saying that as instead of hello and bye, you say, they fought, you are divorced, so he counted that.
Yes, so that would be the disagreement that we will go over when we cover the chapter of divorce, because it's such a huge one, and we have to look at the evidences and historical background. But this would end the chapter on engagement, and the chapter on engagement is interesting because people take particular interest in engagement and marriage, particularly engagement. But in the future, we will try to cover more, inshallah.